Greetings, EastEnders fans, and welcome to another episode of Albert Square After Dark, your weekly EastEnders podcast. This week, discussing the episodes broadcast between the 25th to the 28th of June, 2024. Hello, you melting like we are. I don't wish to start every podcast complaining about the weather, but it's bloody hot, isn't it? It's bloody hot in the UK. Now, this is where anyone who doesn't live in the UK goes, oh, yeah, you want hot? Come to our country, mate. Come to America where we're under a heat dome. I know, all right, I know. But all your homes are air conditioned, I'd argue. Ours keep it trapped in, all right? This is a rant I have every single summer and will have for the rest of my life, I suspect. Joining me, as usual, is Ree. Hello, Ree. How are you?
I'm good, Rob, thanks. You're
Good.
looking really nice with your new haircut, by the
Yeah,
way.
good.
It really
Yeah,
suits you.
Thank
Looks
you.
really
Thank you.
nice.
Thank you, Ree. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Right, so just before we began this conversation, I said to Ree, so
What?
you haven't
What are
noticed
you
my
on
haircut.
about?
Don't stop, don't.
Don't know
I
what he's on
said,
about.
no, she doesn't know. I said you haven't noticed my haircut at all. Actually, no, that's not quite right.
I
I
did.
posted my new haircut on Instagram, and the comment I got from Ree was "God about time," and she hasn't said anything since. So does that count? Does it as you noticing that I've had my
I'm
haircut?
just giving you a compliment, Rob. God, he
Only
tries to
because
make out like
I
I never
dragged it
noticed
out
these
of
things
you.
about him. You know, it's just because your hair looks so good all the time, Rob, that I don't feel the need to comment. You
Now I
know?
know. Now I know you're talking bullshit. Because my hair looks like Donald Trump when it gets to a certain length. So
We've had a few Donald Trump
yeah,
impressions actually, haven't we, over his
my hair is the
years?
best. This is a very best podcast. An absolutely fantastic podcast. Everybody says it. Everybody says this is the best podcast. Ugh. Anyway, so we are on to the 25th to the 28th of June. We are in
We
midsummer,
are.
and oh my goodness me, do we have some new characters to discuss this week, Ree? Some new Mitchells have strutted their way onto the square. And I quite like them, I have to say. I think this is going to be interesting. I wasn't sure at first, which we should discuss later, but I think by the end of the week I was kind of like, everything's fine. These boys will be fine. I'm sold.
I am
good.
definitely intrigued. Definitely intrigued.
100%. Like, what is this? It feels like this is only just the start of something as well. Like, you don't bring 3 whole new characters in. 3 whole new characters to kind of just sit there and
I just
do
keep
nothing in the
wondering, where are
background.
they
So
going to live? That's all I can't figure out. Where
that's
they're going to
always the
live.
question with new characters, isn't it? Where are you going to live?
Yeah.
Where are you going to live?
They
We'll have to wait
definitely
and
can't
see.
live in Billy's house. That's full.
No. But then, since when has that ever bothered anybody in EastEnders? Should have been
True.
the Slaters. Why not? Should have been the
Yeah.
Slaters. Should have
Yeah.
been the Vic.
Do you know
Should
what?
have
They've
been
got
the Vic.
loads of room.
Bring back Monique and Xavier,
Vic
and
or
then shove the new
Slaters.
bitches in the Vic as
Yeah.
well. Do it. Why
Yeah,
not?
you've got a point.
There we are then. Right, we've got a few other things to discuss before we get to the new Mitchells. We shall start off with talking about Nugget. Oh, my heart broke. My heart broke for him this week. So let's crack on with this week's Albert Square After Dark. Right, as I say, let's talk about Nugget and the boxing tournament and Ravi. Now, I have to say, I actually thought that these were my favourite scenes of the week this week. I really, really did. So in the run-up to the boxing tournament, pretty obvious that Nugget is sort of losing all confidence. Denzel is getting ever so slightly more arrogant, and I just think that
I hate Denzel at the minute. He can
he's just an
nanas.
arsehole. He's just an arsehole at
Nanas.
the minute. He can nanas, yeah. I mean, he's just an arsehole at the minute, isn't he? Like, obviously, it's the Roids doing this. Is that the cool way to describe steroids these days?
Yeah,
Roids. It's the
roids.
Roids.
Yeah.
The
The
Roids
roids.
doing it to him. And I think it's not. I don't think he's particularly trying to make Nugget feel bad. It's not like he's picking on him per se, but it's just like he is so far ahead in his own self-confidence, which is a million miles away from where Nugget actually is at the moment, that it's just making Nugget feel worse, I think. And they're kind of, he's doing this thing where he'll be punching away at the punch bag, and Nugget's sort of standing there like just sort of like.
I mean, but to be fair, regardless of the roids, right? Denzel's been, working out and doing all this for a lot longer than Nugget.
Yeah.
So he's being well harsh, being like, "Oh, catch up." It's like, you've been doing this for months.
Honestly, this is what I'm like with stuff like this. I go to the gym once and I'm convinced I've lost 10 stone. That's just obviously that should be how it works. It's only fair, right? If I've actually taken the time and effort to go to the gym and I've gone swimming or I've been on a treadmill for 15 minutes, what do you mean I haven't lost 10 stone? That's bang out of order. I mean, I've got to make more effort. What are you talking about? I've been there. I've done it once already. I've done it once. What's the matter with you? Yeah. What? I've done it once. What more do you want from me? I wouldn't go to the supermarket and buy a big food shop every single day. You do it as and when you need to, surely. That's how it should be. Honestly, it's not fair. Wow. It's not fair at all. So anyway, so Nugget's self-confidence sort of kind of continues to diminish throughout the week until they're
self-esteem.
Yes, and then they are sort of
yes.
they're kind of coming up to the boxing tournament, and basically Nugget kind of has a meltdown and sort of basically storms out. Ravi discovers him in McClunky's, and they have this really nice conversation, don't they? And it was a really good moment for Ravi. Really good moment for Ravi to actually be a decent dad and sort of be there for Nugget. I like
it was nice because when we thought this was all starting, we said, "Oh, he's got like quite a lot of toxic masculinity in his life." Yeah, but actually, Ravi's proved otherwise with how he's been.
Well, yes and no.
Well, I mean, okay, I don't. Yeah, fair, actually. Yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, there is several elements of Ravi where you sort of can understand how Nugget would feel a little bit sort of like, how do I even approach? How do I tell my dad that I'm having something close to an emotional issue? Because Ravi doesn't strike you as the sort that you'd be able to sort of sit down and have kind of like a feelings conversation with a lot of the time, does he?
No, true. I don't know that. I mean, like, it would nice for Ravi to say, right, well, you've clearly shown an interest in wanting to get fit. Yeah. Clearly, I'm someone who, like, you know,
he's got arms like oak trees. You know what I mean? Like,
so let me help you out, kind of thing. But then I'm like, is that the right way to then I don't know.
Well, let's think about this. Is it the right way to go about it? I think that it is. I don't think it was. This is very different.
It's better than putting him in a boxing den, if I'm honest with you.
Exactly.
Saying, fight it, boys.
Which he's done before. And it's also it's very different to sort of the way that Phil would do it, and sort of insert, like, Phil would go down the route of actually inserting more of his toxic masculinity into him at this moment, wouldn't he? And say, well, you're a man, let's sort you out. Well, what Ravi's actually doing is, right, okay, so this is what you want to do. I know about this sort of thing. So me and you, let's go have some father-son time together. I'll step up and I'll take you through this from day one. We'll do Idiot's Guide to weightlifting or something, and then you'll be absolutely fine. All sort of culminating in what I thought was a genuinely gorgeous scene in the gym, when Ravi's just standing behind him and just supporting him, and he's got these tiny weights. So they were quite small weights, weren't they?
Yeah.
And Nugget was just sort of doing that, and wasn't overexerting himself and making himself feel like crap because of it. It was just at the level where he needed to be. And Ravi was like, and I'm with you every step of the way. Let's do this. Beautiful. Absolutely loved those scenes. Absolutely fantastic. And I want to say a massive shout out to Jaheim Russell Chowdhury, who plays Nugget, who I have been a fan of since he came in. Actually, I won't say here a bad word about Nugget. I never have done, but I think that he is, specifically over the past year, really nailed that role. I think there was no doubt what was internally going on in Nugget this week. And I thought he absolutely knocked it out of the park. I really, really, really did. I think he's such a strong little actor, and he's growing every single week. And this story I find so relatable. I've been where Nugget is, right? Okay, genuinely, I've been at the stage where Nugget is, where you are surrounded by much better looking people in your mind, and you just sort of think, I am the lowest of the low, right? Okay, I am so far down the food chain compared to these people that I'm surrounding myself with. It's the worst feeling in the world. And it's really, really difficult to pick yourself up from that.
Well, like we've said before, it's interesting that they've done it from a teenage boy perspective, because we see it a lot from a teenage girl perspective, this kind of storyline, don't we? I think with today's culture, I feel so old when I talk about things, but with social media and stuff, it's true, isn't it? And Denzel is like, Denzel's walking blooming Instagram, isn't he? Let's be honest at a minute.
Well, it's interesting that we kind of thought that where Nugget is now is where we thought the storyline with Denzel was going.
Yeah.
And in many ways, it seems that the Roids have kind of sorted whatever self-confidence and self-esteem issues that Denzel had completely out the window. A little bit too much. I think they're going to start going in very different directions now. It depends where I think Nugget's now going to be the leading component in this story for a little bit. Well, I think wherever he goes is where Denzel's story will sort of divert to.
It's interesting though, because Nugget seems like he's not very well from him, doesn't it? Like he's thrown up. He looked very grey. So is he? We were thinking that Denzel's going to get ill from him. I think.
Well, Nugget's been taking him nowhere near as long as Denzel has, though, has he?
But that's what I mean. So it's interesting that he's having a potentially, bad reaction to him already compared to Denzel. Because I don't think we saw Denzel throw up or anything.
No, Denzel's absolutely fine.
He doesn't seem to have had any side effects.
Denzel's taken a couple and turned into Popeye the Sailor Man. Like, he's absolutely fine, isn't he? So, I mean, so the way into this boxing tournament thing approaches, and Zach's taking charge of it. We said this when this storyline was first sort of thrown around like, oh, well, Zach's got experience with steroids, so it might be nice to sort of bring him into it in some way, and they have perfectly done that, I think.
And it's nice that Zach's doing something now. Whitney's gone. I've liked seeing Zach and it not being without being horrible. Crying about Whitney.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean,
he's nice to see him doing his own thing. Obviously, he's going to cry about Whitney. But...
Of course he is, and he is entitled to do that, I guess.
Yeah,
but
I know.
No, but he is sort of, I mean, and the reason he's doing this is because of the Whitney thing. Yeah. Someone to turn around to him and say, right, can you pull your head out your ass, please? Go and do that. It's over there. Go on, off you go. Go and sort yourself out. So that's why he's doing this. But I think it was really nice to sort of it was the only character that they could have for this moment. Like, considering how many characters are sort of involved in the boxing den, you could have had Phil doing this, you could have had Ravi doing this, but Zach really works because of that steroid connection. And I thought that was quite clever, the way that they sort of made that feel natural.
And he's got an interest in helping young kids, you know.
George could have done
doing
this.
The fostering and stuff. Yeah, that's true.
George could have done this. Even Junior could probably have fitted into this slot quite nicely. But because of that steroid connection, it really worked to have Zach in this role. And it seems that Zach is very much onto them, because he overhears Denzel and Nugget talking, and for using the phrase "juiced up." Are we juicing up before this? Is that the phrase?
Oh, that were it. I couldn't remember what it was.
Is that the phrase that they use? And I don't think they were talking. And he's like, I don't think you're talking about apple juice over there, young boys, are you? No. Because I'm assuming that's the parlance, you know, with steroids in that community. We're juicing up, boys. We're juicing up. So he goes straight to Ravi, and it's sort of like, so something to tell you. Got a feeling that your boy's taking steroids. Sorry about that. And Ravi, this is where I think we'll go back into slightly older Ravi territory, where he's not entirely a modern man. Kind of goes into denial and goes, "That'd be stupid. Get out." Of course,
just because you've done it, Zach, don't mean my boy's a good boy.
And then what the question now? The thing is with Ravi as well. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that Ravi was clearly obsessed with fitness himself, I think that he would his brain would automatically go to needles. But because Ravi is involved in the fitness thing, I think he will know that there are other ways of taking steroids apart from just injecting yourself.
That's true. I did wonder that, because when he said that at first, I thought, would Ravi have
immediately
said, well,
thinking
I've not
needles.
Seen any marks
Yeah. But I think because he is so he's involved in fitness himself so much, I think he'll be a little bit more wise to that sort of thing.
I wonder if that's where Denzel's going to head. Then.
Well, possibly, yeah. I do wonder, because it's the problem with this sort of thing is that initial stage becomes not enough, doesn't it? You have to sort of then bring it up a little bit more.
Your game,
you're looking in the mirror and thinking, I'm not seeing results quick enough here. Let's up it a little bit, and then you're into very dangerous territory as you sort of fall from there. But Nuggets, I have a feeling his steroid journey may not be lasting much longer, because he's not reacting well to them at all.
No, it doesn't.
It's not doing his self-confidence any good either. And I do wonder, because Zach kind of pointed out the mood swing thing as to a kind of a symptom of taking them. And half of me kind of think that with Denzel, we've seen that in clear illustration. That Denzel is an arsehole at the moment. And was a bit of an arsehole before he even started taking them, let's be fair. I've still not forgiven him for what he said about Yolande's cooking. But with Nugget, I kind of feel like a lot of his mood swings are more to do with how he's feeling about himself rather than the effect of the steroids.
I thought that as well, because a lot of Nuggets you could just put down to normal teenage behavior, really, couldn't you?
Yeah, he's not being outrageously. Yeah, he's not being an utter arsehole like Denzel is occasionally at the
moment. Then again, I think what Zach witnessed, Denzel and Nugget were getting a bit argue with each other. Yeah. Whereas Ravi's probably not seen that, because he's not seen him. How he talks with Denzel at the minute.
Yeah, I think Zach certainly planted seeds in Ravi's head. It wasn't a case of like he was completely and utterly dismissive of it. He told Zach to go away, and then
you could see the realization on him of him thinking, why would Zach just say that without any, you know?
Yeah, this is Zach. Why would he say that? I trust Zach enough. I trust Zach enough to know what he's talking about, but I just don't want to admit that this is something that I now have to deal with. My restaurant is very busy. I haven't got time for my son to be on steroids, quite frankly. Yes.
I think like we said as well, he just doesn't think. I just don't think he initially thinks that that's something Nugget would ever try and do, would he?
No, but then I think it's the Denzel thing that sort of led him a little bit astray, and it's all spawned from teenage boys being teenage boys and thinking with their pants initially, hasn't it? Like, it's the fact that Denzel's getting more attention off girls than he is, so it's like, right, well, if that's what you're doing to make that happen, that's what I now need to do.
Yeah. Because with Denzel, it was when Yolande got attacked, weren't it? And that's when he...
Yeah, which is weird, really, because Denzel's turned into more of an arsehole, and yet his genesis with this was from slightly more honourable reasons than I want to get laid.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Bless him.
I think as well, though, I don't think Denzel's helped Nugget's self-esteem, has he? Because
No,
obviously
not at all.
when Ebony were getting involved, Denzel's like, oh,
I don't want to see
can you
that
like
bitch
not
again.
be
Ebony
getting
is
involved?
awful
Incha.
girl. Oh,
I can believe, honestly, it makes
so
me so
vapid.
scared for my daughter to become a teenager with this, like, being the world that teenagers live in at the minute.
Yeah. Second time we've made ourselves feel old today, isn't it? When we start saying things like the world we're bringing our kids up in these days.
Well,
it's awful. Totally true. Totally true. I am so glad that none of this existed when we were at school. None of it existed. Social media. Social media. I
had
don't.
MySpace. Top 8 or top 8 beef. That was about
that was
as far
as
as
dramatic as it got, isn't it?
Yeah.
Top 8, and people say, why is she top 3? Well, I was 3 before. Why am I 5
you moved
now?
her from top 3 to number 5? What? That used to happen a lot. That was quite telling, let me tell you.
Absolute drama back in the day. That wasn't
Proper
it?
Drama.
Proper drama. So yeah, good stuff with this week. I'm really excited to sort of see where this goes. I'm really pleased that Nugget's in the spotlight at the moment because he's been yearning out for a little story of his own for ages. So I'm really pleased to see that he's getting it. I love Jaheim Chowdhury. I think he's great in the role. So yeah, more of this hopefully coming up next week. Bring it on. Right, ladies and gents, we'll move on to another fabulous actor now, Miss Angela Winter, who continues to just absolutely awe-inspire the lot of us with her performances. And there's been quite the developments this week with the Yolande story. So, on to Yolande this week. Now, if you were here previously, you will know that we finished last week with Pastor Clayton being arrested because Yolande eventually went to the police and reported the assault. And Clayton was led away by the police. But as I think we probably guessed where it was going to go, he's basically immediately released. You know, presumably asked a few uncomfortable questions. They can't prove anything, so they just immediately sort of let him go with no charge. That was kind of always going to be how it went, I think. I don't think anybody really thought that was going to be done and dusted end of the story, did they?
Well, unfortunately not, because we know that Yolande's not really got any evidence, has she? Unfortunately.
No. And we were also wondering last week what has become of Levi, and we discovered the answer to that this week. And it turns out that Levi is not the kind of runaway because the situation is too difficult to deal with person that we might have suspected him of being, because actually what Levi's been doing is going away and trying to do his own inquiries, and he has managed to find Delia. And if you remember Delia from the flashbacks that we watched a few weeks back on the actual assault episode, Delia was the one that we saw going to the police after she was actually raped by Clayton. Now, we did sort of wonder whether this was going to, whether any of those other victims were going to make an appearance at some point, and I'm glad that they have, and I think it was right for it. I mean, we saw that Delia went to the police and nothing got done about it, and having just seen that with Yolande, I think it felt kind of right for that to be the victim.
Yeah, for it to be Delia to be the first one that we meet. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And so Levi's basically tracked this Delia down and says, so our next option is if you kind of go on force with this and you talk to Delia and see if she's prepared to kind of bring all this up again. So Delia arrives and initially is sort of reluctant for obvious reasons.
Who can blame her? Yeah,
who can blame her? You know, she's
been through it all already, and nothing happened.
She has been dealing with this for years now, hasn't she? Like this kind of this.
I think the actual 2016 it happened.
Yeah, something like that. I think it was. I think she was the last one that we saw in the flashback. So she was sort of the one before Yolande.
That we know of,
that we know of, and just really interesting the way that they've sort of brought Delia in. You can kind of completely understand her thinking. Like, I've lived with this for years. I've lived with this for about 8 years now, and I went to the police. It wasn't believed, and now I've just sort of had to live with it, and I am a survivor of that. That's what my life has become. Why do I need to bring it all up again? And Yolande sort of points out to her, at this stage, it's not really about us anymore. It's about protecting future victims.
And whilst I agree with that, and that it's great that they're going to try and prevent this happening to any other women who may be similar to them, I think that's quite a lot of pressure to put on both of them, not just her putting that kind of pressure on Delia, which I don't think was her intention, by the way, but I'm just saying, I think Denise said it to her earlier in the week, because Yolande had said it about herself, and like Denise said, it's not up to you to stop him doing these actions, but I get it, but I'm just saying, I thought, that's a bit of pressure to put onto her.
Well, I thought that they covered that when Yolande was basically saying, we don't have to do this. So she was very clear throughout the entire process. Like, at no point am I going to force you to do anything you don't want to do.
No, true.
But
it was more to give a motivation to do it, I think, weren't it?
Yeah.
rather than to pressure her. But I'm just saying that.
Yeah. I want to do a shout out to the line that I thought was really cleverly written, where they did a sort of play on the words pray and pray.
Yes, that was a good one.
That was a good
line.
Really good line. That I thought
he
it was very
doesn't
well
pray
done.
to God; he prays on women and their faith.
And I thought it was brilliant. Very, very, very good line. One of those lines you sort of watch and you think, and you actually go, oh, that's good.
Nice
well done. Oh, yeah, it's very good. And so eventually Delia is sort of convinced to go to the police, and we sort of leave this storyline at the end of the week with Delia sort of being taken away by the police and interviewed. So what do we think? Is this now the start of Clayton's downfall, or is more going to have to be done?
This is what I do. Well, just before we started doing this, I was frantically trying to Google
whether this actually helps. Yeah,
whether multiple people coming forward and accusing the same person will get them anywhere, and it looks inconclusive to me. I think it again just goes on evidence. So will multiple people's claims count as sufficient evidence? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've said all the way through this that I think this is what this story is about, rather than the direct effects on Yolande as a character. Obviously, we're dealing with Yolande's sort of journey throughout this, but actually, I think this story is more about is the impact and the difficulty in conviction. It seems to be what the main sort of force pushing this story forward is about. So I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't turn out to be enough either, in all honesty.
Well, this is why I'm wondering. I think we said before, will it go in newspapers or maybe more so online? And then it might mean that other women come forward, hopefully, and then maybe then it's going to go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this
depends on whether they have sufficient evidence as well.
I mean, we've seen a few times in like sort of the celebrity world that if one person comes forward, that can then sort of trickle through to multiple accusations coming forward. I mean, from the police's perspective, I don't know what they do here. Like, there's nothing stopping a false accusation from happening, and then for that false accusation to not work, and then for that false accuser to say to her mate, right, come do this false accusation with me, we'll both do it now. So is that something that they've got to sort of balance? Now, I would have thought that when two women like Yolande and Delia come to you, that's very unlikely going to be that sort of operation, I would have thought, but it's something that they have to work with, I guess.
They can't decide, this type of person's more likely to make a false accusation than another.
Yeah,
to be fair, I don't think it's been made quite apparent that they don't believe the accusation is false.
Yeah, which in itself is weird, isn't it?
They just don't have evidence. It's not that they're not being believed. It's just that they don't have the evidence to back up what it is that they're claiming, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even then to the conversation of like, is that so? I mean, surely that is how it has to be. Like, you can't send people to prison for years and years and years on pure vibes, can you? Or whether you or a certain feeling of whether it's true or not.
But this is where, for me, it's where a jury decides, surely, because if you
but then the jury decides on the evidence presented to them. It's not like they can get a bad vibe off someone and then decide guilty, is it?
I don't know, because I'm more inclined to go, we'll just always believe the woman. I'm going to, obviously, I'm not saying that there aren't people who make false accusations, but I think it's a lot less likely someone to make a false accusation than a real accusation. And I just think if you put people like Yolande and Delia in a court scenario in front of a jury and Pastor Clayton, sure, he's a charming guy. I don't doubt that he won't be able to try and talk his way out of it.
Man of God, yeah.
Exactly. But then I think if you put someone like Yolande and Delia and the other women that it happened to, a jury might be inclined to go, these don't seem like the type of women who are just going to say something like this. And he seems like a very overly charming.
Yeah. But then that is in itself, again, it's not evidence, is it? It's not sort of, it's not cut and dry proof, which is what juries
it's someone's word,
sort of
not
need.
Evidence, though.
Yeah, exactly, and that isn't enough. Is the problem, isn't it? In sort of,
I mean, we're talking about the entire justice system here, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the problem is it's innocent until proven guilty, not innocent until I reckon he's probably guilty, isn't it?
Not guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the other way around. Yeah.
And the whole thing of always believe the woman. I agree with you in many respects from that. But then if that becomes the rule, then that means that then the false accusations can then just flow from there, doesn't it? So it's a really tricky territory. It's a storyline that's meant to sort of start these sort of conversations off, and it's doing that very, very well. But you sort of wonder, where does this end in that respect? Like, are we actually going to get to the end of a storyline with no conviction? Like, storyline wise, we don't get that Schadenfreude of watching Clayton go down. But then realistically, is that where the story has to go in order for it to feel realistic?
Yeah, in some way. I don't know. It just all depends on whether multiple women's, account of things means anything, I guess, in justice system for whether he's going to go down or not. Because we've said before, like you say, if he goes down, that gives people more hope to come forward and hopefully speak their truth, etc. But realistically, he wouldn't, would he?
No.
From what we've seen of the starts.
Yeah, it's a funny old situation like that, because it's like, how do you change that? How do you stop the rot that is this situation? And in many ways, you've got to sort of go right back and think about it. You can't, can you? It's like,
how do you get the evidence unless you go there the night that it's happened? And even then, with the evidence, even with the evidence, you then have to argue the consent, don't you? Like, that's a whole other element, even if you have got evidence.
I suspect the way that this will go, maybe, is that they will maybe this won't be enough, and then I think maybe further down the line he will get a little bit too overconfident and do something that kind of produces irrefutable, and then does something that then produces irrefutable proof of the situation, and then that's how the storyline ends. But then up to that point, simply reporting him has not been enough, and maybe that's the storyline more than anything else.
See, I've been wondering this, but then I don't know, because he seemed so clever about it. Like, even when he's talking to Yolande one-on-one, he never admits to doing it. It's always like, we've been saying, me and Stella have been talking about how confused you are, love, and how delusional you are. And it's never like, haha, I've got away with it, Yolande.
So it's not like Yolande's had the opportunity of doing that classic soap thing of going into a room with him with a recorder or something. Like, he's not allowing even that to happen. Now, again, will he get
That's why I don't know if he'd be smart enough.
This is what I mean. Will he get overly cocky to the point where she's able to do that? I don't know, or maybe gets a bit gobby with Patrick, who he knows is no match for him. So is that maybe where that's going to go? I don't know. I feel like that's ultimately where it's going to end the story, that it'll be a trip up on his part rather than the judicial system actually being any help.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, I agree, actually. Yeah, that seems like the most likely outcome.
Yeah, but we'll see where it goes. But I was glad that we got Delia back anyway, because I did want some form of continuation of the old victim story. So I'm glad at least that we've got that. But I feel like we've still got a long, long way to go with this storyline yet.
Yeah, definitely.
On to the big one now, and this is the arrival of the new Mitchells. We have Teddy, we have Harry, and we have Barney Mitchell, who have strutted their way onto the square. First impressions of the new boys, Ree. What do we think?
First impressions, or impressions after the week?
I think after the week, because I think that I had different impressions after the last episode of the week than I did the first. I would say, I would argue first episode syndrome is definitely a thing.
I know what you said. Right, well, let's talk about the impressions first, and we'll talk about the episode. So Teddy, I can't make my mind up about whether he's a right or a wrong one, because he's almost too charming, but I don't know if that's what they're trying to convey, because we're still in his first week.
Do you know who I get vibes of from Teddy? Honestly, at this stage, is Mick.
I've seen a few people say that online, actually.
He actually reminds me quite a lot of Mick. I can imagine him, because he seems...
And I get more of a slimy, not slimy, but like almost too good to be true vibe is what I get, actually.
You've had that of every new single male character we've had since we've been doing this podcast.
Well, you should always be wary. Man or bear, Rob, if you've not heard about that debate. No, it just seems a bit too good to be true. Then I say that, and then I think... Then I see how he is with his kids, and I'm like, I can kind of see that.
At the moment, he seems all right. I don't think
he's very charming, though. Very charming.
Very charming. I don't think he's going to be a carbon copy of Mick in any way. But what I get from him is that sort of softy behind a slightly rougher exterior. Now, Mick was never that much of a hard man, which is where I think they differ, because ultimately he's a Mitchell, so there's going to be a certain grittiness to him that someone else wouldn't have. But I got the feeling that there's actually kind of be quite a sweet bloke underneath it at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
I think that he seems all right at this moment. I think he could probably fly off the handle quite quickly. I get that impression. But at this stage, I'm sort of like, I think he's more on the good side rather than the bad side at this stage.
Have you ever watched This Is England?
Yes.
So you know how like mods used to get a bit of a bad rep, but obviously there are some nice guys in there. Like arguably a lot of the This Is England crew. Maybe it's kind of that vibe. So yeah, they're a bit into this, and then but really they're actually really nice people underneath. Because I know that like some of those people used to get like the National Front stigma attached to him when they're really not like that at all. So maybe that's his kind of vibe. But I don't dislike him, regardless of whether he's a good one or a bad one.
Yeah.
I'm definitely intrigued by him.
Yeah.
Then I see his relationship with Stevie, and I think you are a good one because he's quite soft with his dad as well.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I mean, you kind of got the impression that he's almost a little bit sort of exasperated by Stevie's behaviour a lot of the time. So I think at this stage, I have to say, I think he's probably more of a good guy. I kind of like him. I think he's definitely got a sort. There will be times I think when we see him in probably more of an antagonistic role for that particular story.
I still think he's got a gangster side, but a bit like because he said something to Phil like, "Oh, maybe we'll work together" or something. Like that.
I don't think he's not like above the law at all or anything like that. I think he'll definitely be a bit of a dodgy character, but I think on the whole, I think he's going to be sort of
guy.
I think you're going to have your typical EastEnders bloke who's a bit dodgy, but ultimately a good person. I think so.
He seems like the family man, the glue that holds the family together, and he sees Stevie's ways and goes, "Come on, Dad. You know, son. I mean, Dad. It's not going to end well telling these lies, is it?" So yeah. Anyway, do you agree? You just think he's like a Mick type of?
Yeah, at the minute I'm getting Mick vibes off him. In all honesty, I think if Mick was to go a little bit more dodgy, I think that's what we'd get with Teddy. That's the vibe I'm getting at the moment. So, and I'm not sure about the jumper over his shoulder, but that's a different matter altogether.
That's the whole mod thing that he's got going on.
Yeah,
it's like I'm a respectful person. It's not around my waist.
Yeah,
it's here, and it's that kind of. It's like the fashion from the time. I think I could be totally wrong.
So that's Teddy.
Yes, that's Teddy.
What about Harry?
Typical ladies' man, not got that many brain cells.
This is what I would say is what I'm more referring to when I talk about first episode syndrome.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
So, I mean, by the end of Thursday's episode / Fridays, I was all right with him. Like, I sort of got that he's. I think I got the impression of him like, okay, so maybe a little bit simple in some ways. Yeah. Kind of all right. I think he's going to be. I think what he will develop into is somebody akin to the likes of Fat Boy or something like that. I can imagine him being a bit of a comedy character at times, whilst having sort of that ladies' man quality about him. So somebody that's fairly sort of. I don't think we're gonna at this stage. I don't think we're gonna discover any sort of dark secrets about him or anything like that.
No.
I think very much he's one of these people that what you see is what you get of him. I wasn't overly sort of enamored with him sleeping with Penny in the first 5 minutes of meeting him. I sort of was like, how many times have you seen that? Come on, like it's. You're a ladies' man. You've got to sleep with the first woman that she comes.
Do you know you like tell me I'm naive and stuff? Do people just do that? They just meet someone and then sleep with them.
Well, I mean,
while sober as well. They're not even drunk.
Yeah, no, I mean, arguably, I've probably done that on Grindr a few times, but ultimately.
Yeah, well, at least you've gone out. It's not the same thing. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It just seemed a bit.
I know what you mean. No, I know totally what you mean. It feels a bit forced in that respect, doesn't it? Like you sort of like
even the day after would have seemed a bit more believable.
A bit better, yeah.
You know what I mean? But like
the first 5 minutes, especially though Penny literally was like they had 2 scenes together, effectively. The one scene in the street, and then the second scene of the Vic, which lasted about a minute and a half, which ended with.
I don't even think she let him buy her a drink, did she?
Which effectively finished with Penny saying, "Fancy a shag," and then they just went and had a shag. So we've seen that a million times before. So I was sort of like, "Come on, okay, let's try that a little bit." And the thing is, I don't even get
happen.
No, and the thing is, we've just seen it. We've not long seen it with Junior as well. Now, I know there's additional elements to the Junior side because he's married and everything, but that's effectively what we got with Junior as well. Sort of. I mean, he slept with Bianca, and now he's slept with quite a lot of people in the small amount of time we've known him. In terms of if Chelsea had said yes, he'd have slept with her as well. So we very quickly got that impression of the ladies' man. And I think with Harry, the thing is with Harry and Penny, I don't actually think I got the impression that Penny actually won't be a huge part of his story moving forward. I can't imagine that we've just met these two and they're going to be the couple of
on the square.
No, at all. I think I literally just a one night stand.
Well, she didn't seem interested after, did she, in talking to him or anything?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd say not bad, but I just thought it was just like, yeah, okay.
It felt forced. That bit in particular felt forced. We could have had them flirting without them sleeping together, and that would have felt a bit more realistic, wouldn't it? But like, all right, we've got your number. You like your women, whatever.
But what I did like was his relationship with his brother. I think that's going to be interesting. So then we move on to Barney, who I actually was probably the one I'm most intrigued by out of the three of them. Said this before, the actor who plays him is autistic in real life, and I very much got the impression that that's where the character is going to go as well, which would be the first regular adult character to have autism in EastEnders. I can't actually think of that many other soaps off the top of my head either. So that's interesting, something that doesn't really get covered all that often in soaps for a regular grown-up character. So that would be nice to see. And it's not like, and he's got a bit of sort of oomph about him as well. I found him the most interesting. He's got a few more sort of additional layers to him, I thought. So I'm looking forward to seeing more from Barney.
Yeah, I thought the little bit that felt a bit like, all right, why is his brother only just asking about why does he carry a book around with him? I know it was like we're introducing new characters, but come on. How long have you been with him and you know that he carries a book around? We can see he's carrying a book around. We know. You didn't really need to mention it.
Yeah, we got the impression pretty quickly about why he carries a book around with him at all times, and you've apparently lived with him your entire life. So if we've worked it out, you should know that by now. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it was more, again, the case maybe sort of falling into the fact that Harry's a little bit simple in the sense that it wasn't about questioning why does he carry a book. It's like, but sort of more, why does he have to in front of me?
Oh yeah, true. You know, Oh, I didn't get that actually. Yeah, you're right. I thought it was just telling us as an audience that he carries a book, but actually, I think you might have a point.
I think it was a bit of both, wasn't it? It was more. It was on 90% of it was that. Really, you're right on that respect. But I think you could also read it in the terms of, if any of those characters were going to say it, I think it's like it looks so uncool with me walking around with my brother who's got a book carrying around with him all the time. How am I supposed to shag birds within the first 5 seconds of knowing them if he's carrying a book with him at all times? You know, like it's probably got that vibe to it.
Sorry, can we just mention the scene that he had with Avani that was so out of character for Avani?
Oh, I didn't think it was at all.
Oh, I thought this was clearly written for Amy or something, and she's like holding sick. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think that at all.
I thought Avani were being way too soft with him. She'd normally be like, "Yo, man, what are you doing reading a book? Yeah, it's Albert Square. What are you doing, man?" And she was like, "Oh, hello, hi, I'm sweet Avani. Your shoes are very white."
I didn't get that at all. I kind of thought, you know what? I'll tell you what they're going for with that is the sort of now those two will be a couple. Okay.
Yeah, I did think that after.
And what they're going for with that is a sort of Stacey and Bradley type approach with that, is where they're heading with that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now, hopefully that's not going to involve Barney sleeping. Hopefully that's not going to involve Barney sleeping with Teddy and then Barney falling off the roof of the Vic. Guessing it's not going in that direction, but that sort of vibe.
Well, you never know. It is Albert Square, right?
Well, exactly.
You never know.
But you know the vibe. But you know the vibe. I mean, sort of like Stacey, this kind of hot, sort of glamorous chick, and then Bradley, this sort of geeky Doctor Who fan, so it's going to go in that sort of direction, I think, with those two. Like, Avani's a little bit more sort of streetwise than Barney is, so there's going to be that sort of opposites attract type story.
I don't feel like I've really seen that side to Avani, especially with young people.
But then look at how she is with Nugget.
Like, she's not a brother, and
but she's not sort of hard as nails with Nugget all that often. There is a softer side to Avani. She's got a gob on her. I
don't argue that there's a softer side. I was just very surprised to see it with him in that moment. She seemed too soft. Anyway, just an observation. It felt very out of character for me.
I didn't think so. Oh no, well, people entitled to their opinions. No, it's just people have different.
I know.
Don't attack me, real. Don't attack me. But I'm telling you now, Avani and Barney will be a couple in not long time. I think that's how
opposites attract as well.
Exactly. They've always got to do something like that, and it's kind of a very sort of simple storyline to go with a character like Barney. You know, if you weren't going to do it with someone like Reese, you do it with someone like Barney. You know, it's sort of
true.
It's about teaching the person on the opposite the way, like, this guy is actually kind of like a really sweet bloke. That's what we're ultimately going to get.
And he might help her with some schooling and
exactly, which is not a story you'd get out of someone like Amy. I feel like Amy would have been instantly emphatic towards someone like Barney, whereas Avani is more curious. I got the impression that she was watching him sort of like a wildlife documentary. It's like, why are you sat on that bench reading that book? And she wasn't taking the piss. She was just more genuinely sort of fascinated by it.
Why would you read a book?
Why would you do that? I got that
That's
impression
wild, isn't it? Yeah. Now that like it's abnormal to be reading a book.
We're old, Ray. That's why books won't exist in 20 years' time. Books won't exist in 50 years' time.
I can't even read on a Kindle. I have to have the hard copy of a book in front of me. I'm with you, Barney. And a
harp playing in the background while someone feeds you grapes. So that's The Boys. But like I say, the first episode syndrome I think really hit Harry particularly hard, but I kind of liked them by the end of the week, and all three of them I can see slotting in quite easily. And I'm intrigued to sort of see where they go from here. So the storyline to bring them all in, now we've done that, was the whole Will and Stevie situation. Now, last week we saw that Stevie was being accused of stealing the money from Lola's fundraiser. You kind of thought, well, it's Stevie, isn't it? Didn't you? And were you surprised but when it turned out to be Will in the end?
No, not after you said it. Why didn't I realise that? It was a hat thing, and I thought, oh, it's a magic hat.
This is why you accused me of having a smug face. You know, this is how that happens. This is how that happens.
Yeah, you got it right. Well done.
What can I say, Detective Rob? But Stevie basically is spending the first half of the week trying to clear his name because his name is Mud at the moment because everybody thinks that he's stolen the money from Lola's fundraiser. And the only person really on his side is Mo, and then Will, who I think ultimately is feeling very, very guilty all of a sudden that Grandad Stevie is getting accused of my heinous crime. So it kind of falls that way. Phil is loving the opportunity to sort of drag Stevie through the mud even more.
There's something more to this Phil and Stevie.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
Stevie must have got some dirt on Phil because he's almost too eager to get rid of him and pin stuff on him. There's something.
Yeah, because Phil has been accusing him of all sorts, saying that he's dangerous. Like, of all the things that Stevie is, I don't get where he's getting dangerous from. Like, and there's right from the first time, there is something right from the start where those two laid eyes on each other at Aunt Sal's funeral. Phil has wanted him way, way, way away. So why? Because ultimately he appears to be this kind of sweet, slightly dodgy older bloke. Now we get kind of vibes by the end of not vibes. We're told basically outright at the end of the week there's an additional secret to come. So I wonder if it's that. What we're talking about here is
Phil's already known or something, or
maybe Phil's heard stuff. I don't think Phil knows anything. I get the impression more that Phil is sort of doing this on a feeling that he's got that Stevie needs to be away, stuff that he's maybe heard about Stevie, stuff that maybe lies that have been told about Stevie. I don't know.
And I think that it's that Stevie knows something about Phil.
Right, yeah, maybe.
I think there's something like that involved because I thought it was very weird for Phil. He could have just said, obviously, what's happened is Will ends up accidentally really attacking Stevie.
Yeah.
And then instead of Phil just saying like, oh, I found the money on Stevie, he then adds in because he wanted to set up Will. Why did he say that? He could have just left it as I found the money on him.
Yeah, and then look at the difference here between Ravi stepping up for Nugget and taking him to the gym and doing some one-on-one personal training to Phil stepping up for Will. Like, there's a slight difference in motivations, I'd argue, isn't there?
Definitely.
Don't get me wrong, I love Phil, but he's an arsehole. He really
I love Phil in that baseball bat.
Yeah. Oh, now see, we got the return of Phil's bat this week, which I'd argue Phil's bat should be its own character. I want a storyline. I want to know where it's been. You know, if that bat's been off for a while, I want to know why we didn't get told about its paternity leave storyline. You know, it's been a while since we've seen the bat. But it's now been, I'd argue Phil's bat has now been taken down to, I need to threaten kids with this, because I'm fairly sure that was the last time we saw Phil's bat as well.
Yeah, so, Tommy went it.
Yeah,
Tommy and Kerr,
so I'm pretty sure, or was it, actually no, I think the last time we saw Phil's bat was when Sam came back for a bit and he had to scare those kidnappers away or something like that. That was, I think, the last time we saw Phil's bat.
Yeah.
Bat watch, I think we need to be doing now with Phil's bat.
Okay.
So yeah, I did quite like that scene though. What is this? This is an angry man with a bat.
Do you know what though?
Phil makes me laugh as a character.
He sorted situation out, I bet you, hasn't he?
Not correctly, but he dealt with it. And I bet that Carl will go nowhere near him ever again.
And do you know what made me laugh is I thought, why didn't Stevie or Will just think, why don't I just go to Phil and ask him to threaten him with a baseball bat? That'd probably get
honestly, if I lived in Albert Square, I'd be like, Phil, I need you to
any problem. Yeah,
I know. He's difficult to become mates with Phil, but I think what you'd have to do is basically just break the law once in Phil's favour, and then you've just got him there as a sort of backup option.
And he's got your back.
Because above anything, Phil has the honour of as an honourable side, whereas you've scratched my back, so yeah, I'll pay you back.
He's
at some point.
Yeah, he's loyal,
in that respect.
Yeah.
Probably only do it once, but you'd have that card to play at any time you wanted. It's a useful thing to have. So like we say, so Stevie, Phil's basically trying to set up Stevie for the whole thing. He plants this money on Will because Will gives him the money back. So he says, "Oh, I found this on Stevie," and Stevie then wakes up, and then the whole family are sort of like, "You're a thief." Billy's furious. Stevie basically then discharges himself out of hospital because, as we always say about Wolford General, you go in there, you're probably going to be okay unless
you're cured of any ailment that you may have had. Yeah.
I've been in a coma. Oh no, come all right now. This is why Debbie's still unconscious. If she'd gone to Wolford General,
she's not in Wolford General.
No,
is she? Yeah,
if she was in Wolford General
type of facility, yeah,
Reese could just ask her to have the money. But because she's not in Wolford General, this is how he's had to go about it. You see, the magic of Wolford General. It's like a Pokemon Center. You walk in there.
Sonia told it. Well, we know why Sonia's not told him. Actually, there you go.
Exactly. There you go. So yeah, this kind of goes on. Stevie released from the hospital. This is how the new boys come in, and then there's all sorts of confusion about the whole thing. They end up arguing, and Will eventually confesses, and everything sort of seems to be okay. And they all sort of sharing a pizza. I think Phil is a little bit reluctant at first, but then I think
I got pineapple on it.
Oh yeah, right. Wrong. Now we don't want to be controversial here. Me and Rhea are both massive anti-Hawaiian pizza people. All right, it's just wrong. If you're a Hawaiian pizza fan, let us know in the comment section, and I'm happy to fight you. Okay. But I think he's kind of reluctant, but I think then he thinks it warms to the idea. Because actually, what we actually also get vibes of this week is that Phil's a bit lonely.
Yes, I've been saying this. I've said this a couple of times, actually, the lonely Phil vibe.
Lonely Phil.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Ben's not there. He's got no one really in the house. Well, he's got if he didn't have Raymond and Denise, he would literally be on his own.
Denise, who literally couldn't care whether Phil lives or dies.
Well, I'm wondering, are those two going to move back out, and then the new Mitchells are going to live with Phil, maybe?
Maybe. Or is this heading towards a bit of a lone Mitchell type storyline where Phil has to deal with loneliness for the first time in his life? He's done everything that Phil has ever done in his life. I wonder if this is hints of something, actually. All the things that Phil has ever done in his life is actually now finally coming back to bite him, where he's just got nobody around him because they don't want to be around him because he's Phil Mitchell.
Well, I'm wondering, is it going to be opposite then if it goes down that route? And he's not going to warm to these guys, and he's going, I don't want anything to do with Stevie's other family. So then Billy and co they're all going to get on happy families.
Maybe this why? And let's think about this then. Is this maybe why he's wanted to push Stevie away? Because Stevie comes back into Billy's life, and he hasn't got Billy there in the as closely as he used to have him.
Like possibly it's an element, but I think there's definitely something more going on.
He's lost Ben. He's lost Louise. You know, he's lost Kat.
He's just split with Kat.
Sharon and
Albie are at arm's length.
Yeah. So he's having to work extra hard there. I wonder if this is where this is going, actually, thinking about it. I wonder if we're heading into a bit of a loneliness storyline for Phil. And he's done so much trying to build this empire.
I said it last week, he's very lonely.
Yeah. But I wonder now if this is where it's going, where you're sort of thinking about Phil, that he's done so much to build this empire that effectively is moving on without him.
Yeah. It'd be a good way to see how he is now that all his kids. Well, he's still got 2 on square, hasn't he? But his grown-up kids have.
Yeah, and it's been it's been a very long time since Phil's had his own storyline to deal with. Often Phil is a support. Often Phil is just a part of a story, whether that be in an antagonistic or a protagonistic role. He's very much sort of a support character in a lot of storylines. It's been a long, long time since we've had Phil have a story of a line of his own. So I'd welcome this, actually. This would be interesting.
But then why have they just got him involved in the 6 or the 9 as they now are?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Why is it just, and then we've not heard anything again after that?
I don't know. Watch this space, though. I think these boys were. I wonder. I'm beginning to wonder now if the reason that he didn't want Stevie around is because he was worried that Stevie would sort of muscle in on what he's got left.
He's always in the Vic with Billy and everyone, isn't he?
Yeah,
like that is his family at the minute.
Yeah.
I thought Jay and Callum were really harsh this week as well to him, particularly Callum, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the other thing. Like, this is effectively, and this isn't. Don't worry, Ballum fans. This isn't a jibe at Callum. But think actually, there must be a side of Phil that thinks, how far have I fallen? That I'm actually now desperate to spend time with my son's ex-husband, the copper.
It's not his ex-husband. They're still married. It's
they're still married.
Yeah,
but I think you know, it's. Do you know what I mean though? Like how is that? Is, like imagine the Phil from 20 years ago being told that you're going to be desperate to spend time with that guy. He'd laugh in your face.
And I thought it showed a nice character change. Actually, I viewed it as a positive and like, look at Phil spending time with his son-in-law. Isn't that nice? Who'd have thought it?
I do miss the Phil and Jay relationship because that used to be so strong, the Phil and Jay, and they've not really done a lot of stuff with Phil and Jay recently. And now Ben's gone, I would really like to sort of see the Phil and Jay relationship sort of be explored again because they used to be the Phil and Jay scenes used to be fascinating. Because Jay used to be sometimes one of the only people that could actually talk sense into Phil when he was raging at something. Like Jay was normally the voice of reason outside of Sharon. It used to be like Sharon and Jay could normally team up and take Phil down to a slightly more sensible, reasonable level.
So was that scene meant to be that's it? Jay and Callum are cutting Phil off just because some kid's dad come round and got angry?
Yeah,
and then he hasn't got those two as an option anymore.
I'm convinced now. There's a lot more to this with Phil on his own as a character. I think this is definitely where it's going. Interesting. Really looking forward to seeing that. Actually, yeah, good stuff. So yeah, the new boys are here. I'm excited to see more of them.
A lot with Mitchells this week.
A lot with the Mitchells. Yes. Final question to you, Ree. I'm going to do the gold star first this week because I normally always say it to you. I normally always give it to you first, and what I'm going to say is my gold star is going to Nugget this week. 100%, happily.
Okay, interesting, because I'm actually thinking of giving it to Ravi for being a good dad.
There you go, then. So
that
Nugget
makes it. There we go. Nugget and Ravi.
Nugget and Ravi for the gold stars this week. Now it's been one of those weeks that now I've sat and talked about it. I realised I've really enjoyed this week. It was a strong week, and actually really setting up some interesting little tidbits for the future.
Well, sorry, we did not mention that Stevie's clearly was married to Harry. Teddy's mum.
Well, I mean, let's just briefly talk about because you saw that video they did about the Mitchell family tree.
Yeah, finally got it properly explained. So for ages, I'm like, were Eric and Stevie brothers or cousins? They were cousins, weren't they?
Yeah.
Their dads were brothers.
Looking at that video, there's definitely room for
which is on Instagram if you'd like to look at the Mitchell family tree video
or
presented by Emma Barton. YouTube. Oh, is it on there as well? There you go. I think so. Plenty of options.
But plenty of options within that family tree for them to throw another secret in, I think, as well, isn't there? Something to do with Billy's mum.
Yeah, because why is he keeping it a secret who Teddy's mum is and what? Do you think maybe we're a bigamist? Isn't there like a 20-year age gap they've said between Billy and Teddy?
Something like that. Yeah. Teddy's definitely a lot younger than Billy. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm sure I've read it's 20 years. So what's the mystery with his mum? Is she gonna come? Is she gonna
maybe? I don't know.
Is she? I feel like she's passed.
Yeah, I've got the feeling that she's passed as well, unless she hasn't. You know what I mean? Like, unless it's another sort of woman to turn up. I don't know. I bring it on though. I love Mitchell storylines. I love the constant evolving, the complex sort of. I mean, their family tree is basically like Spaghetti Junction.
And where's Teddy's kid's mum at as well?
Yeah.
Or mums. Maybe they've got different mums.
Much more to come. Because I think actually when these three boys were announced, it was sort of like, oh, they're all men.
Where's the women?
This is where the women are. The women are coming, I think. The women are sort of additional secrets to be pulled at.
Yeah.
And then they'll come in. I think we're going to get an older matriarch woman come in. And then some, I think.
Perfect.
Yes. Take on a lane. Marvellous. Right. That's it for this week with the storylines. Final part of the podcast, as usual, is comments from you guys.
So we've got a comment from our YouTube channel from last week from Gilliflower who says, read the flashbacks for Pastor Clayton. In the US, we have a legal concept called the Molyneux exception, where prior uncharged bad acts are admissible to show a distinct pattern. It's called something else in the UK, but it also exists. Could be where this is going. Somebody else then commented saying, probably along the lines of a character statement, individual pieces of circumstantial evidence don't mean much, but grouped together show a distinct pattern of behaviour.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that this is where it's going then.
It would be nice to sort of see an element of reporting it does help, even if it's en masse rather than singularly. It would be nice to see that there is some use to that. But the vibes are that's But the vibes I'm sort of getting from the story is that it's more about how difficult it is to convict these things, and the fact that sexual assault can go for years unchallenged, unstoppable. This sort of evil dust cloud that kind of goes throughout the decades. So
and thank you for that fact, Gilliflower, because that's very interesting to know. Because surely if there's something like that in US law, there must be Gilliflower. Sorry, Gilly. It was GLLY.
Potato, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. Right. The Mitchell boys, Charlie Edge has said, "I loved it. I'm really excited for these new lads. I thought it was a great intro to all of them, and it felt like a play tonight, presuming this is about Wednesday's episode, their first episode, which are always my favourite type of episodes." I get what you mean by that. I actually thought it was very risky of them to do Wednesday's episode the way they did, because actually it was so heavily about the boys, wasn't it? About the new characters. Like, for about 20 minutes or so of the episode, you were literally going from one of them to the next one to the next one, with just the cast that we know sort of being used as very much supporting characters throughout the whole thing. And I wasn't sure whether it worked, actually, because I was sort of like, I don't, because of that first episode syndrome. You get this is the first episode syndrome. In case you're unclear about what I'm talking about, is when is a phrase that's used occasionally. It's not an official term or anything, but it's basically when a new character or a returning character comes in. Alfie had this really badly when he first came back, I think, as well. Where you basically get the most extreme versions of themselves. I compare it to, if you've ever seen I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, when they add cockroaches to a chamber that the celebrity is lying in, and when you first throw the cockroaches in, they go crazy. They're running around and like doing all sorts, but then after a while they start to settle down and they're sort of just
what a strange analogy, Rob. But yeah,
I don't know why. It's the thing. So the first episode syndrome, you've just been thrown in the box and you're running around like crazy. But then after a few episodes, you sort of start to just settle down and sort of get used to your new environment. That's how I always go about it.
I think what was different so the first episode, it was like, we're showing you, the audience, what these characters are like. Yeah. So we've got to throw these lines in, like Barney telling Harry about his past behaviour that they probably wouldn't really discuss in that nature.
Yeah. Penny and Harry sleeping together. Yeah.
Compare it to Friday's episode.
Yeah.
Because they were all aired at different times on TV, by the way. Yeah. Compare it to Friday's episode, the last episode of the week. And then Harry's talking to Honey about his previous work and things. And it felt a lot more natural because the character is introducing himself to somebody on the square rather than to the audience.
Yes.
So I think that was the difference between the two.
Notice
as well,
he's a mechanic as well. That's convenient, isn't it? Yeah, there you go. He's another mechanic.
But I thought I actually didn't mind that first episode syndrome as much as I have done with previous characters that are introduced. It's strange that we both had a different opinion on that, actually, but
it always happens, especially with returning characters as well. Yeah. Returning characters get it all the time. Like Janine had it really badly when she first came back. Bianca, Alfie, they all, Kat, when she first came back, I remember Kat having it really badly. It just happens every time because you're almost reminding, you kind of give the audience a bit of a blast of their best bits all in one. And with a new character, you're like, this is what you're going to get. Rah! And then it sort of calms down a little bit after that. So you kind of just got to, at some points, sort of take that first episode almost at face value, be like, okay, lovely. And now next episode, I feel like I'll actually get to know these people a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a comment from our Instagram from Emma Selby, who says, really enjoying the new Mitchells, love their banter and squabbling with each other, and they bring some humour to the family. Highlight of the week, though, was Denise's summary of Phil. If he gets lonely, he may do a heist or knock up another woman on the square.
Sorry, Phil and the word lonely being thrown in together. I think this might be where I think this is where it's going. I'm convinced this is where it's going.
I'm not being funny, but I said that last week.
Yeah, well,
Can't just take all credit for it when I said it last week.
I'll go back to last week's episode and edit you saying that out. That's not a problem. I can do that. I genuinely don't remember you saying that at all. Did you say that?
Yeah, I literally said it. Wow. Back me up if you want to comment on our YouTube page that I said it last week. Oh, now I'm going to be like, did I say it in a conversation that we had and it weren't recorded?
Should we say this off camera? Is that might it be? Yeah, I only pay attention to you when we're actually recording.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the only thing that matters in our friendship these days, I'm afraid. When the little recording buttons at the top, that's vital.
But no, I did find that line very funny that Denise said. And I did think, Well, maybe that is the next step then. He's going to organise a heist or knock up another woman on the square.
One of the two. Finally, Simon Paris has said, love the new Mitchells, but given the way that they were presented as a bit of a mystery / surprise, it is a shame we all knew who they were from the BBC publicity. I would say
that is true.
It is true, but I thought it was surprising because actually I thought that we've had quite a lot of trailers in this era. And I'm surprised we didn't get one for these new boys. We've got the publicity photo and sort of like the official announcements about them, but we didn't get a trailer about them, which seemed surprising considering that they are clearly quite important new characters.
Yeah, to be fair though, I agree with what he's saying, because we spent the entire Thursday's episode following him around like we did in the way that we did, without any of them mentioning how they knew Stevie.
Yeah.
So why keep it a mystery when you've already told us all? You might as well have just told us. Yeah, you might as well have just told us from the start of that episode.
And I'd argue it wasn't even
the duff and going, your brothers. Oh yeah, we've not figured that one out. And actually, you told us a few weeks ago.
I'd argue that it wasn't even that much of a mystery, because the way we got introduced to them was the nurse ringing them up as Stevie's next of kin. So it wasn't that surprising.
It's obviously family. Well, actually, next of kin doesn't have to be a family member.
That's true.
But
that's very true.
Yeah, still, it's implied, isn't it?
Did you notice that Stevie's first scene was very, very reminiscent of Phil's first scene? I don't know if this was deliberate or not. A lot of people have noticed this. Phil's first ever scene is him arriving on the square, like on the phone to somebody. How he managed this in 1991, I'm not quite sure, because I don't think mobile phones were a thing. Car phone, I think it would have been then, wouldn't it? But in a very sort of similar sort of vibe. I don't know if it was deliberate. They're very similar, so maybe it was deliberate, but. There was a parallel there. I think that some people noticed.
They like the parallels at minute,
love a parallel. We love a parallel. Right, that's it for this week, ladies and gents. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. If you would like to send us your comments, questions, or feedback, you can do the following.
You can find us on Facebook at Albert Square After Dark, on Twitter and Instagram at E20 After Dark. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can listen to us on Apple and all your favourite podcast sites. Drop us an email at e20afterdarkpodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to buy us a coffee, you can do so by going on buymeacoffee.com/E20 After Dark.
Yes, you can indeed. Thank you very much for watching and listening, everybody. We will be back same time next week. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye. See you later.
Bye.